Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. This is the second module on ecosystems, concept, structure and functions. The learning objectives of this module are to learn about ecosystem functions, to understand the concept of food chains, food web, energy flow and nutrient cycling in an ecosystem, to learn about various processes taking place in ecosystem at cellular levels and to understand the concept of herbivory and carnivory. Ecosystem functions. Ecosystem functions are the physical, biological and geochemical processes that take place or occur within an ecosystem. Every ecosystem performs under natural conditions in a systematic way. It receives energy from sun and passes it on through various biotic components, and in fact all life depends upon this flow of energy. Despite the broad spectrum and great variety of functions in nature, the simple autotrophs, heterotrophs, decomposer, classification is a good working arrangement for describing the ecological structure of a biotic community. Production, consumption and decomposition are useful terms for describing overall functions of an ecosystem. These and other ecological categories pertain to functions and not necessarily to species as such, because a particular species population may be involved in more than one basic function. This table shows the structural aspects and functional aspects of an ecosystem. As we have studied in previous module also, that as far as structural aspects of an ecosystem are concerned, an ecosystem is having two components, biotic components and abiotic components. Biotic components include producers, consumers and decomposers, and the definitions or the meaning of these we have discussed in previous module. As far as abiotic components are concerned, these include inorganic substances like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, etc., and organic components like proteins, amino acids, lipids, carbohydrates, humic substances, etc., climate and its components like temperature, humidity, moisture, sunlight, rainfall, wind, air, etc., and other factors like minerals, soil, topography, pH, etc. As far as functional aspects of an ecosystem are concerned, they include food chains and food webs, energy flow, nutrient cycling, ecosystem processes to explain interactions among the components of ecosystem, ecosystem development, ecosystem regulation and stability, and ecosystem services. Let me try to understand food chains and food webs. The flow of energy is mediated through a series of feeding relationships in a definite sequence or pattern, that is from producers to primary consumers to secondary consumer and to tertiary consumers. Nutrients to move in along this food chain. The sequence of eating and being eaten in an ecosystem is known as food chain. Some common examples of the food chains. The food chain start from phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons are consumed by zooplanktons, then zooplanktons are eaten by small fish, and small fish is eaten by large fish. This is an example from the pond ecosystem. Each organism in the ecosystem is assigned a feeding level, and that feeding level is called as trophic level. That depends on its nutritional status. At each trophic level, some energy is lost as heat and respiration. As a result, available energy decreases, moving away from the first trophic level to the last trophic level. The food chains can be of two types: grazing food chains and detritus food chain. Grazing food chain starts from green plants and ends in a consumer. Let me take some examples of the grazing food chain. First example is that is grass to insect, then to sparrow, and then to eagle. The second example is tree, then tree to bird, bird to snake, and snake to hawk. Then another example is plant to deer, and deer to tiger. So these are some of the examples of the grazing food chain. Then second type of food chain is detritus food chain. In many cases, the principal energy input is not green plants but dead organic matter, and these are called as detritus food chains. The detritus food chains are commonly found in forest floors, salt marshes, and the ocean floors in very deep areas. The example of detritus food chain is leaf litter, then leaf litter bacteria, then protozoa, then small fish, then large fish. Food web. A food web is defined as a network of interwoven food chains with numerous producers, consumers, and decomposers operating simultaneously at each trophic level, so that there are a number of options of eating and being eaten at each trophic level. Food webs can get quite complex with several interconnected food chains. They give greater stability to an ecosystem. In a linear food chain, if one species become extinct or one species suffer, then the species in the subsequent trophic levels are also affected. Whereas in a food chain, on the other hand, there are a number of options available at each trophic level. So if one species is affected, it doesn't affect the other trophic levels so seriously. Energy flow. In an ecosystem, there is a continuous interaction between plants, animals, and their environment to produce and exchange materials. The green plants capture the solar energy and convert it through the process of photosynthesis into chemical energy of food and store it into their body. This process is called as primary production. The rate of total organic matter production by green plants is known as gross primary productivity. The green plants use some of the energy in the process of respiration. Rest amount of energy is called as net primary production, that is the amount of energy left for the heterotrophic organisms. At the consumer level, the rate of assimilation of energy is called as secondary productivity. The whole process is called as flow of energy. The most important feature of this energy flow is unidirectional or one-way or non-cyclic flow. It flows from producers to herbivores to carnivore organisms. It is never reused back in the food chain, unlike the nutrients which move in a cycle. As the flow of energy takes place, there is a gradual loss of energy at each level. This figure shows the unidirectional flow of energy and nutrient cycling in an ecosystem. You will see that energy coming from the sun goes to primary producers, then from primary producer to primary consumers, then to secondary consumers and tertiary consumers, and ultimately to detritus organisms. But energy is never recycled. This figure also shows that these blue arrows clearly indicate that the nutrients are recycled, but energy is not recycled or reused, and energy flow is unidirectional in nature in an ecosystem. Nutrient cycling. We have already seen that while energy doesn't recycle through an ecosystem, nutrients do so. Since the inorganic elements move through both the biological and geological world, we call them biogeochemical cycles. The biogeochemical cycles are of two types: gaseous cycles and sedimentary cycles. Gaseous cycles, as the name is indicated, this is related with the cycling of gases, and examples are nitrogen cycle and carbon cycles. The reservoir is in the atmosphere or hydrosphere, that is ocean. Sedimentary cycles, the example are phosphorus cycle. The reservoir is in the lithosphere. The nutrients are first taken up by the producers, bound in the organic compounds, and move along the food chain to heterotrophic levels, and ultimately from all trophic levels, with the detritus to the decomposers. The decomposers break down the complex organic compounds and release the nutrients back to the soil, from where they are again taken up by the plants, thus making the cycle complete. Ecosystem processes. Ecosystem processes include the processes by which transfer of energy and nutrients take place in between biotic and abiotic components of ecosystem. The storage and fluxes are two main paths of ecosystem processes. Storage means accumulation of chemical compounds in the ecosystem components, and flux indicates the conversion or movement of stored chemicals from one component to another component, for example via food chains and food webs. The various ecosystem processes and their controlling factors we are going to discuss now one by one. First one is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process in which carbon dioxide is fixed or reduced to carbohydrates, glucose, and chemical formula of glucose is C6H12O6, and water is split in the presence of light to release oxygen molecule. It is important to mention here that oxygen released during photosynthesis comes from the water molecules and not from the carbon dioxide molecules. The overall photosynthesis process can be written as carbon dioxide plus water. In the presence of light, they produce carbohydrate and oxygen. This figure shows the photosynthesis at trophic level, photosynthesis at cellular level. All photosynthetic reactions take place inside chloroplast. Small organelles present in mesophyll cells in leaves and stem. Chloroplasts are green due to the presence of chlorophyll pigment. The chloroplasts have a highly ordered array of membranes arranged in stacks called thylakoid membranes. The latter act as a solar panel with a large surface area and organize the pigments chlorophyll and carotenoid to absorb light energy. The chlorophyll is the principal pigment involved in the process. It is a large molecule and absorbs light maximally in the violet, blue and red region in visible spectrum and reflects green light, and thus leaf appear green in color. Carotenoids including carotene and xanthophyll absorb light in the regions of the spectrum not absorbed by chlorophylls. Respiration. Respiration may be aerobic, that is with oxygen, or anaerobic, that is without oxygen. Aerobic respiration is reverse of photosynthesis. It is the process by which organic matter is decomposed back to carbon dioxide and water with the release of energy. The equation of aerobic respiration is shown here. Carbohydrate, that is glucose shown here, that react with oxygen and ultimately produce carbon dioxide, water and energy. This figure shows ecosystem respiration. Carbon dioxide ecosystem respiration mainly includes carbon dioxide released by plant respiration, carbon dioxide released by animal respiration, carbon dioxide released by the respiration of roots and soil fauna, carbon dioxide released by microbial respiration during litter decomposition, and carbon dioxide released by soil respiration. So, the carbon dioxide released by these all together called as ecosystem respiration. Decomposition. Decomposition is a biological process of breakdown of complex organic matter, that is carbohydrates, proteins, amino acids, nucleic acids, etc., into simpler molecules like carbon dioxide, water and inorganic nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur. Basically, there are 4 stages of decomposition. The first stage is initial leaching. Initial leaching is the loss of soluble sugars and other compounds that are dissolved and carried away by water. Second is fragmentation. Fragmentation of particular detritus by physical and biological action accompanied by the release of dissolved organic matter. Third is rapid production of humus and release of additional soluble organics by saprotrophs, and fourth stage is the slow mineralization of humus. Mineralization is the release of organically bound nutrients into inorganic forms for the use of plants with the help of ammonifying, nitrifying and other microbes. Now, let me try to understand herbivory and carnivory. Herbivory refers to ingestion of autotrophs such as plants, algae and photosynthesizing bacteria by the heterotrophs. Herbivores can be of 2 types, monophagous and polyphagous. Monophagous are organisms that exclusively eat one plant species, and the survival of these organisms is dependent on the survival of the primary food source. Dear student, I will give you one assignment, that make a list of some of the animals that are monophagous in nature and also try to find out on which particular plant these animals feed. Then polyphagous, as the name indicating, polyphagous feed on more than one type of plant. Most herbivore animals are polyphagous in nature. Further, there are different subgroups of herbivore animals depending on type of food they consume. Herbivory is a beneficial process for plants as well. Fruit seeds are dispersed over wide areas as the herbivore moves. Tough seed coatings are removed by the digestive tract of the herbivore, and its dung fertilizes the soil, providing an ideal environment for seed germination. Carnivory is the ingestion of animals or herbivores by other organisms. Organisms that prefer meat over plants are called as carnivores. Carnivores, predators, they kill and eat their prey. For example, a lion or a tiger hunting smaller animals like rabbits or deer, sea otter hunting sea stars, or blue whale consuming zooplanktons and fishes. The carnivores' habits can occur in plants and fungi that feed on insects or microscopic invertebrates. Studies have indicated that consumers play an active role in the maintenance and regulation of energy flow through the ecosystem and hence contribute to its persistence. Now, to summarize this module, that what we have in this module, we have learnt the structure and functions of ecosystem, and we have learnt that these structure and functions of ecosystem are very closely related and influence each other so intensely that they need to be studied together. The simple autotroph, heterotroph, decomposer classification represent the structure and functions of an ecosystem. The sequence of eating and being eaten in an ecosystem is known as food chain. A food web is defined as a network of interwoven food chains with numerous producers, consumers and decomposers operating simultaneously. Thank you.